I'm Tenitra Batiste, and yep, a statement was made at Mercedes-Benz Monday night.
I'm Maria Martin, and I think the biggest question is this Falcons team for real? They sure look like it.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and the vibes are always great in October. I hope they keep on continuing.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and Deion Dawkins was giving away all the little plays on Monday night.
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst, Jarvis Davis, and 11 Live anchor, Maria Martin. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and it's presented by Prize Picks this crossover Thursday. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So, do the Falcons finally crack Jarvis's code again this week? We'll discuss. And the NFC Offensive Player of the Week gave kudos to his defense. We'll talk about that. Also, the Iron Man cometh or no? We'll download on it. But first, statement game or just another dub, Maria? Leading up to Monday's game, we talked about a win against the Buffalo Bills being just that, a quote-unquote statement game. Do you feel like it was a statement win for this Falcons team?
It's certainly a good win. I think it's a little bit too early to call it a statement win. I mean, you needed a win against a team like the Bills, who has the reigning MVP. A lot of people had them circled as Super Bowl contenders before the season. Granted, the Bills have dealt with a ton of injuries, but they're still a good football team, a really good football team. And the Falcons made them look sloppy, made them look out of sorts. And I thought that that was really critical in measuring where this Falcons team not only is, but where they're going. So statement wins for me are going to come later in the year when playoff contention is on the line and when it's something you absolutely cannot lose. And, you know, we talked before the season and we looked at the Bills and thought, oh, no way the Falcons are going to win this game. Going into that game, I thought, oh, the Falcons have a really good chance to win this game. They look like a much different team. So I think it's a little early for me to call it a statement win. However, I think it's really important because you come out of the bye week, which, again, we were really critical of that week 5 bye. I think it came at the perfect time, actually, for the Falcons. You get the Commanders win. You have the bye. You use that to your advantage. A lot of teams look slow coming out of the bye week. The Falcons looked everything but that. They score on their opening drive. Obviously, the offense tapered off in the second half, but I thought they looked really good, you know, top to finish against a very good team on primetime. I think that this was a huge step in the right direction. The challenge now becomes a back-to-back primetime scenario for the Falcons on somewhat of a short week. It's not really a short week, but just a little bit, one day short. To me, the 49ers become an even bigger challenge. Can you continue what we think is a team that's building into something really special?
Yeah, I think you made great points. It could be looked at as a statement win, or it could be looked at as right there on it as an important one. But also you got another one that is kind of in that statement win, important win space in the San Francisco 49ers. And to your point, you got a little bit of a shortened week because it's a Sunday night game coupled with a West Coast game. So you've got kind of your work cut out for you. But yeah, this nonetheless, I think we all agree on some level, big win against the Buffalo Bills for this Falcons team. For you, Aaron, when you look at this win, and, you know, we kind of circled not just this game on the calendar, but remember when we were talking about sort of the critical games for the Falcons, sort of the gauntlet, if you will, of the first 6 or so weeks of the NFL season, it's like the Bills were like right there at the top, stacked. Well, the Falcons walk away with a win and a nice dominant win, especially in that first half. But statement win or just really important win?
I'm willing to say it's a statement win. Again, whether or not we're going to still be having this statement at the end of the season remains to be seen. To piggyback on Maria's point, you know, the vibes are always great in October here in Atlanta these last couple of seasons. It's just the problem with the Falcons is the vibes don't continue past the month of October these last couple of years. But I do think in the sense of looking at this game as Maria pointed out, you sort of pencil this game as like, yeah, they're probably not going to win that game. It's really more how competitive they are against the Bills. But when you look at this game, the Falcons, I think, did pretty much all the things that you wanted to see this team do that we have been talking about ad nauseum for months. That are we going to see X, Y, and Z from this team? We've talked a lot about the play action passing game. This was their best game when it came to the play action passing game. You saw them being down Darnell Mooney, just kind of run their offense through Bijan Robinson and Drake London, right? And they were able to play at arguably the best we've seen from both of those guys this upcoming season. You got to see this offensive line play really well against a solid Bills defensive line. You got to see this defense go up against an elite quarterback and shut him down essentially, and have him, confused and discombobulated and all those various things. You were able to keep the Bills run game in check. You weren't necessarily stopping James Cook, but because of how well the offense played, because of how well the pass defense played, it kind of made James Cook, even though he was having success on the ground, a non-factor in this game. And your secondary did an excellent job. Your special teams played reasonably well, -1 field goal. And so, I feel like the Falcons checked all the boxes that we were looking for from this team for the most part. And so for that reason, I think it's fair to say it was a statement game. But as Maria pointed out, it's like, I think it's safe to say that we will probably look back at this game and say this was the best game the Falcons played all season long. The question is just going to be whether or not they will be able to continue this momentum from this point in time, and we will see more other games like this game that are in contention to be in the conversation for their best game all season long, or is this just going to be kind of a one-off and the sort of classic Falcons where they have one really impressive game each year and you're like, oh, this team is different, and then they're not that different as the season plays out. So I think time will tell on that issue, but absolutely, this to me is as good as it gets for this Atlanta Falcon team that we have seen not only this year, but probably the last 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. And I don't think that's an overstatement, Aaron, by any stretch of the imagination, because Jarvis, if we take away the gaffes by one Parker Romo, you could really say, because we all kind of talked about this post game and agreed that the second half, it wasn't so much that the Falcons took their foot off the gas offensively or that the defense just fell off. It was just more of, you could have expected the Bills to come back with their up-tempo offense. That's why they were able to score coming right out of halftime. And the Falcons decided to go with ball control. We're going to put it on the ground. We're going to keep Josh Allen off the field. So minus those two gaps, you really could say that was one of the most complete games in recent memory. But that said, statement game or important game?
I will say this feels like a statement game. On the surface, you can say, oh, yeah, it's too early in the season, like Maria and Free kind of hinted at. But I think that this is one that I felt like it felt like one. Because when you think about, people not believing that, oh, yeah, they beat the Commanders, that, they didn't have Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, even though A.J. Terrell locked him up and gave him an F and, put him in jail and all that stuff. They didn't believe that. Okay, all right. It was Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Yep, we understand that. Yeah, that's cool. Y'all supposed to win that game. Oh, but here comes big Josh Allen. Oh, Super Bowl contenders. Oh, reigning MVP. Oh, and guess what they did? They went out there and punched that man in the mouth. And they made him disappear. They made him look very weak. I was listening to the sports talk station up there in Buffalo, and one of our guys for the Locked On Bills squad is a radio host up there. And you would have thought that Josh Allen would have threw 60 picks. Keon Coleman talked about everybody, all the fan bases, mothers and everything. They were just giving those folks the blues on that radio station. And then they're going into a bye week. They were talking about trade deadline. Who can we trade for? That's a statement to me, because when you change the narrative, they changed the narrative about the Buffalo Bills. And we know how the national media loves the Buffalo Bills. And the Falcons kicked their behind to the point where people were like, I don't know about this Josh Allen dude. He look a little off a little bit. Like that's a statement. I'm sorry. I have to. It feels too much like a statement game for me to say it's not. So yeah, that's where I am with it.
Yeah. And Maria, when you look at the fact that players are saying, or Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, rather, Aaron is saying about these players that, hey, what they were able to do, especially in that first half, makes you feel like that could be the foundation of this offense moving forward, that you'd be fine with that combo. But can that formula of heavy on Bijan, heavy on Drake, a little bit of Kyle mixed in, and maybe sometimes even heavier on KP than Drake, depending on what the defense gives you, but can that formula break this team's 7-year playoff drought as far as what you can see today?
Speaking of the 7-year playoff drought, I'm not willing to call a win in the month of October a statement win until this team makes the playoffs. I can't do it. It literally, like, everything in my body cannot make me do that, because we're talking about a team with a 7-year playoff drought. So
yes,
I think, and I do believe, I don't even want to put this out there, but it's true. I think this team is going to make the playoffs. I think it's finally going to be over. But what I will say is those statement wins,
because of the way they played on Monday night. But you can't say it's a statement game, though?
No, I felt that way before Monday. So it has nothing to do with Monday. That's why I'm a little cautious in saying that.
Okay.
This and the Panthers game didn't cause me to panic like everyone else did. I don't think that had anything to do with what this football team is. And you're clearly seeing that on display right now. Sometimes that happens. And granted, I know everybody wishes that it didn't happen, but regardless, you're starting to see this team really is what they are showing you in the Commanders game, in the Bills game. And they played good teams before that as well. So going back to your initial question, Tenitra, those three guys, can they be the foundation? I think it's funny that the national media is starting to figure out that Bijan's good at football. I tweeted that yesterday. I said, how funny is this? You know, we've all four of us have known since he got here that he's a special player. It's just when you have somebody like that take apart, I mean, granted, the Bills' run defense was 30th in the league when they played at the time. But regardless, this guy is a freak of nature. And when you see him do stuff like that, leveling guys like Ed Oliver with his shoulder. Ed Oliver's a massive human being, okay? And Bijan is acting as an offensive lineman in a lot of scenarios. He's ripping off 81-yard touchdown runs, the longest in the NFL that we've seen this year so far. I think it's just funny that people are starting to figure out that this is a good player. So when you see him highlighted on primetime football, you finally get, oh, Bijan might actually be good at this whole football thing. Yeah, we've known that for a long time. And Drake, he's been banged up a little bit. So to see him come back and start to be the receiver that we know he is, you look at his next-gen stats and you look at his stats to this point in the season, they're going to dip lower than you would normally think just because of that injury and trying to ramp him back up. He'll get back to the normal numbers that we know with Drake and KP. I like that Aaron mixed him in there because this is the best year that KP has had when it comes to effectiveness and production. So you saw those video game numbers from him in his rookie season, which really did Kyle a disservice because when you set the bar that high in your rookie season, you think that he's supposed to do that every single year. He has not done that, but it goes beyond what you see on the stat sheet. To me, this is the most solid year he's had, top to bottom. The numbers, they may come, but when you have so many other offensive pieces that Mike can get the ball to, it kind of quiets Kyle in that area. Kyle's doing very important things that don't get mentioned very often. So that's Aaron's point, is when you have a mixture of those three guys as your foundation, the sky's kind of the limit with this offense. This is literally what this front office has been envisioning and building for years. And you're just starting to see some of this stuff come together. It's creative. It's fun to watch. I really, really enjoy what the Falcons are showing us on offense and where I think they're going.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, Maria. Maybe, as Aaron pointed out, KP's in that mix in large part because maybe an offensive coordinator has finally figured out how to utilize him effectively. And maybe we can see a little bit more of why he was drafted so high in the first place. But Jarvis, for you, when you look at sort of that 1-2-3 punch, and we'll talk about another obvious punch from that offense coming up, but Bijan, Drake, Kyle Pitts, is that the formula for this team to break this playoff drought?
Yes, it's a beautiful thing to watch. Here's why. That was that one particular play on Tyler Algier touchdown run that just spoke to it, right? Because you had Bijan to the left of Michael Penix Jr. Then you had Tyler Algier and the pistol lined up behind him, and then Bijan goes in motion, and automatically the safety comes down because like, hey, something's going on. Seven's moving. Something's going on. We got to do something. Something's going on. So that immediately takes one guy, another defender out of the realm of possibility of making a tackle. And by the time that the ball was snapped, it was 5-on-5. It was 5-on-5, and the safety was being blocked by Matt Bergeron. So as soon as Tyler Algier got through that first line wave, it was a wrap because the corner was running off with David Seals down in the end zone. So when you talk, that's play design, that's formation, that's being beat before the ball is even snapped. So I think that the way Zach has been utilizing Bijan by moving him around, lining up in the slot, lining up in that kind of funky looking offset I formation with things like in that nature. So yeah, those are some of the things that I feel like Zach has gotten really creative, in these last few games as far as letting everyone know 7 is the foundation. So you better react to what's going on especially when he's on the move pre-snap.
Yeah, and I think really the agreement is obviously Bijan is a part of that formula. Obviously, Drake London is a part of that formula. But when you think about championship teams, and believe it or not, as a Dallas hater, I'm going to give Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman. But you think about a 1, 2, 3 punch, if you will. And hey, don't ask me why they just came up, but they did. But in this case, that third punch would be Kyle Pitts versus, say, a Darnell Mooney, because right now you don't have a wide receiver too whom you can rely on because of health, right? So you can legit slide a Kyle Pitts in there, but is that enough to help this team break this 7-year drought?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you have 3 skilled players, performing at a high level, right? And last year, I've talked about this on Locked On Falcons. You had your big 3. That was Bijan, that was Drake, that was Darnell Mooney. All 3 of those guys played at a very high level. Yes. Now, as you mentioned, T, Darnell Mooney has not been healthy. And I think that's a big component of whether or not this team will be able to maintain this and build upon their current success in the latter half of the season, if and when they get Darnell Mooney healthy and get him playing back to the form that he was playing at a year ago and adding another explosive element to their offense, where they had a game where they did not have Darnell Mooney and he was like all of their explosive plays last year for the most part. Mm-hmm. And they still had like one of the most explosive games they had with Drake London having explosive plays, Bijan Robinson having explosive plays, Tyler Algier, et cetera. And so you can see the ceiling being raised by getting that 4th option now in the offense with the 3 that you're currently playing with. So I do feel like the 3 right now should be good enough. They're all premium draft picks. We've all seen these guys play at a high level. And as you mentioned, T, like they're getting Kyle Pitts involved in the offense, which they weren't consistently doing last year. He didn't need to have to do much on Monday night just because that's how good Bijan and Drake London are. But like if you can consistently get those 3 guys in your offense, and maybe some weeks that won't be one of those 3 that we're talking about. Maybe that one week that will be Tyler Algier going off in a big way, getting, 15 carries for 100 yards and doing things like he did on that touchdown run. You have the elements that you should be a high performing offense every single week with the skill position players that you have, as long as the quarterback play is good. And it's currently Michael Penix is playing good football, as long as the offensive line play is good. And currently the offensive line is playing good football. And so I think the Falcons have all the pieces right now that this offense is more than good enough to be a playoff caliber unit.
Yeah, Free Penix is playing good, but good enough to help the Falcons finally crack Jarvis's code again this week. We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Mint Mobile. So if you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making this switch. I know people who've said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. That makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. So you're going to love getting the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price. And the setup is super easy. You keep your number and then you're running in minutes. So ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. So, Aaron, after reviewing the film, Michael Penix Jr. said he felt like the offense left a lot on the table, subsequently the opportunity to run away with the game. Now, the Falcons have only hit the Jarvis standard, 28 points a game once this season. So do the Falcons hit it this week against the San Francisco 49ers? And if they do, how did they get there?
I think it's definitely a possibility, but as you mentioned, T, we haven't seen it consistently. Until we start seeing it consistently, it's hard for me to be super confident and super optimistic that every week. We know that this team has not necessarily played their best on the road. Hopefully, those issues will get mitigated with the momentum that they have with, Zach Robinson being on the sideline. Hopefully that will solve some of the road issues that they have been dealing with. They've been getting off to slow starts typically on the road, and that's not just a 2025 issue. That was an issue in the one road game that they had against Washington where they had to lean a lot on Bijan Robinson because Penix got off to a slow start against that Washington Commanders team, but then obviously finished very strong in that game. And so I think the key for them is if they're going to put up that type of point total, they need to have their first strong road start of Michael Penix's, short burgeoning career. And so I think that's going to be the critical element. But I do feel like the run game is still going to be the primary foundation of their offense. I think the ways that they've been able to get Penix earlier into a rhythm these last 2 weeks at home with some of the quick passing game. Again, like I said earlier, the play action passing game actually worked. It's like, oh my God, I've never seen this before from a Zach Robinson-led offense with play action and whatnot. And so I think that's going to be a core element that this offense can get off to a fast start on the road against this 49ers team that is very injury depleted with their two best players on defense, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, being out for the season. And I think the Falcons, doesn't mean that this 49ers defense is a pushover at this point in time. Robert Saleh is very familiar with all the things that Jeff Ulbricht is going to do defensively. Kyle Shanahan's very familiar with Raheem Morris and this coaching staff. So it's certainly that 49er team will be ready to go is my expectation. But I do feel like some of the things that we've seen the Falcons do the last 2 weeks will help them get off to a better start. And hopefully we will get to that, 28 plus whatever the number is. Again, it changes so much with Jarvis on what that assessment is. But I don't know what it is because it's like 26, 28, 30.
For the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Okay. I don't know, Sure, Jarvis. Yes. Sure. So I think they have a chance to get to that number this week against the 49ers on the road. And hopefully they will be able to get that road monkey off their back this week against the 49ers.
Hey, Marie, I know you got to run. We know you've got some exclusives to do. So hopefully you guys check her out on 11 Alive and some of the great coverage that she has. But I wanted you to get a crack at this answer as well real quick. So again, we're looking at Michael Penix Jr., who looked at the film, who says the offense could have done a lot better, left a lot on the table. But do you think that this is the week that they're going to put out more productivity-wise, numbers-wise against the 49ers? If they do, how do they get to 28 or more points?
I think it's possible, certainly, but I think looking at the 49ers defense, as Aaron, nailed on the head, they're without their two best guys. And so you look at this and they've shown significant issues and cracks since the absence of both of those guys. I know Fred, obviously more recently than Nick Bosa, but you see that and you think, oh, this Falcons offense looks really good. The 49ers defense has got all these issues. It's a home run game. That never works in the NFL. It never, ever works that way. But I do think that the Falcons offense is on the trajectory to do that. They just have to run the football. Keep running the football. You're very successful at that. There's not anybody who can stop Bijan Robinson. They can certainly slow him down or at least try to do that. But you're not stopping him as a player. And it's funny that you're mentioning I got to run. I'm sitting down with Tyler Algier. He's another person who's such a big threat. One of the best, if not the best 1-2 punches in the NFL in the ground game. They're such a fun tandem to watch. Both running guys over at a high clip it's unbelievable to watch. So yeah, I mean, look, I think it's very possible. I think continuing to build on the play action that I think Aaron pointed out earlier as well, you started to see them dip into that against the Commanders, even more so against the Bills. So I'm hoping that the start of it with the Commanders, opening up the play action, then moving on to the Bills and opening it up even more. I hope we're trending in the right direction with that because, for Mike, that's going to open up a lot of different things for him if you can get the play action going. And so keep doing that. Keep building upon that. And it's funny, a couple weeks ago, everyone was so critical of the pistol and so focused on the pistol formation. And what are we talking about now? Again, we mentioned it wasn't necessarily the pistol formation that was the issue. It was the predictability in which they were in the pistol that made it an issue. They've gone away from that. Zach Robinson is evolving as this offense is evolving. I think that's important to mention that this is literally only 5 games in, and they're getting ready to show you that Jarvis's number of 28 points could be obtainable. You're welcome. Could be obtainable at some point in the season for sure. Look, I think they're trending in the right direction, no doubt. I just don't want everyone to make the mistake of looking at this 49ers defense, who no doubt is down and has a ton of issues. I don't want everyone to look at that and say this is an easy out for the Falcons.
Yeah. Not even close. Not even close. Thanks so much, Maria. Safe travels. And we can't wait to see your feature on Tyler Algier and Jarvis. I think Maria makes an excellent point, bye-bye, as well, about the fact that part of why Michael Penix can be successful and feel like there are points left on the board are all of the above. Tyler Algier and him having a little bit more productivity, if you will, a healthy Darnell Mooney. Then also, I think it depends on kind of how they feel about how they approach the second half of the last game, too. The decision was made to kind of go with ball control and time of possession in the second half to seal the win, but that might not be the way you roll in San Francisco, depending on how productive the San Francisco offense is in the first half. So I think that there's every opportunity for this team to kind of crack your code, because I think they may have to, depending on how San Francisco kind of comes out of the gates. But that said, how do you think they get there?
Well, I think the main thing for this Falcons offense to do is to, and Maria kind of touched on it, is to continue to evolve. Because what Zach has been doing, running this 12 personnel, but it doesn't look like a traditional 12 personnel, because you have Charlie Warner lining up. You can line him up right next to Michael Penix in the gun, and then you can split out Bijan Robinson out in the slot, and you can have Kyle Pitts in the slot, and you can kind of work that thing a little bit differently than 2 traditional tight ends in line with their hands in the dirt. I think that it gives you so many things to think about when you're looking at it, right? And that's what you want the defense to do. You want to have, like, okay, what's coming? Okay, why is, like I mentioned earlier, Bijan is coming in motion across the formation. Okay, what is this? Have we seen this before? Or is the ball going to go to him right now? And they give him that screen look over there. Hey, we're handing it off to Bijan Robinson. And guess what? That defensive end that's right there, he has to hold, because the Falcons have been running play action like Free mentioned. So you have to at least hesitate for a second to make sure Michael Penix Jr. doesn't have that ball, so that defensive end can't crash down and try to make a play on Tyler Algier. So all of those things add up to say to this, that I feel like they can hit the mark, because, this was the game that I called out after that Commanders game, because I was like, okay, I like the communication. I like what it looks like. We saw it in back-to-back games against the Buffalo Bills as well. Zach Robinson likes being on the sidelines. He loves communication between drives and everything like that, and they can make adjustments right there on the field. Now they're taking the show on the road. This is going to be a big test, but I feel like they can pass this bad boy, because getting to that 28-point mark with this defense and forcing teams to have to pass against this defense is one of the best teams and defenses in the league against the pass. Let me say that again. The Falcons defense is one of the best teams in the league defending the pass.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink in. So, yeah, if they can get this defense into a situation where whoever's at quarterback, Mac Jones, Brock Purdy, we don't know quite yet who's going to be there. But if they can get them in a position to where they're they have a one-way go, where essentially all they have to do, they have to pass. Yeah, I like those odds. I really do like those odds.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you make a great point too. Maybe one of the most important aspects of this game, and it might then, if the Falcons are able to pull off the win, become the signature of the statement game of the season, not so much because it's the next game, but because it now has that added element. Okay, you did great at home in front of your home crowd. You got out to just a smoking start on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. But again, you did it coming off a week where you were able to get some rest, kind of reset yourself, and do some things that put you in position to be able to dominate. Do it on the road. Do it on the road. Look like a team that actually can make a statement in a place where most teams find themselves kind of stumbling after they've had this amazing or this tremendous opportunity to perform at home. Do it on the road. But speaking of that, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, Jarvis, you alluded to it as well. The 49ers are not their healthiest selves either. Obviously, finding out that Fred Warner is done for the regular season, that's a hit. Bosa, that's a hit. Like, they're kind of in an interesting situation, kind of the opposite of the Falcons. The Falcons are kind of trending up healthy, right? And the 49ers are kind of faced with some setbacks, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But for you, do you feel like this changes anything for Zach Robinson as far as his plan of attack goes?
No, I don't think so. I think we've seen the way that they want to build their offense, which is get the ball into Bijan's hands as much as possible, both as a runner and a passer catcher. You want to see Drake London sort of attacking over the middle of the field, working more in the slot. Them getting that play action passing game. And now with Fred Warner's presence not in the middle of the field now for the 49ers, they're losing a lot. So you're losing a guy that could potentially the one linebacker probably in the league that you would have confidence could go toe-to-toe with Bijan as a pass catcher in coverage, as well as that guy that can help out with Drake London working the middle of the field, as well as Kyle Pitts as well. So I think the way that the Falcons have been attacking teams these last couple of weeks against Washington and Buffalo is going to be the exact same way that you do it against the 49ers. And so now, because Fred Warner is not going to be there, like, it should work a lot better against this 49er team than it would have been before. But like, I don't think you necessarily need to switch up the formula.
Yeah, and I think that, when you look at it from that aspect, those are some of the things that you have to do, and you don't change what you do because a guy is out, because they're still going to run the same scheme, and Fred Warner's back up and came in and had a nice game to end it out. I think he ended up with like 10 tackles to finish off the game once he came in for Fred Warner. So when you think about it from that aspect, yeah, those guys have a certain type. He's going to be the same type. He might not be on the same level, or he won't be on the same level as a Fred Warner, because he's one of the best middle linebackers in the league. But he's going to be that. He's a part of a mold, that the type of linebackers that the John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, those guys like. They like a certain type of guy, so he's going to be in that same mold. So you have to prepare as if Fred is going to be there. So I think that Zach Robinson continue to evolve, and I think that this offense is going to look exactly how it would have looked if Fred Warner was in that position.
Yeah, indeed. Now, the offensive player of the week for the NFC gave kudos to his defense. We'll unpack that in Next Up. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. So you'll love the fact that with Built, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you already have to pay. And whether you're grabbing food at your favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards. And Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plan. So turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's JOINBILT.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use that link so they know we sent you. So, Jarvis, high praise from the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, Bijan Robinson. He mentioned that it was so good going so hard against the defense this summer and how challenging that was for the offense, how nice it was to see that actually translate to the field against a guy like an MVP and Josh Allen. Now, we talked about the Bills game being a statement game for Raheem Morris. In fact, we talked about whether it was a statement game for the Falcons overall earlier in the show, but was it also a statement game, a defining moment for this Falcons defense?
Absolutely. 1000%. I will continue to reiterate that because I think a lot of people are, Falcons fans can be, and I participate every now and then, but I try to remain objective when it comes to this team. And I think I do a pretty good job of it because, people saying that, oh, they caught them at a bad time, or no, they didn't do that, or yeah, Josh Allen was struggling. So, yeah, that's that. It happens in the NFL. It was a one-off or something like that. So, and you go down that rabbit hole. But no, I saw some things on tape that I felt like the Falcons could take advantage of coming into that game. Mm-hmm. And they actually went out and did it.
Yeah.
And when you do things like that, you have to understand that this defense is different. I will say it again. This defense is different. Believe what you see. It is for real. They don't have the 16 sack guy by no means. And they haven't had that guy ever since I got John Abraham. God bless him. Put the man in the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous. I'm tired of saying it. But what they do have is they have a wave of guys that can throw at you. They have a stand-up linebacker in Caden Ellis who's versatile as all get out. He can line up at outside linebacker and rush. You have Divine Diablo, who's the transformer right there in the middle of the field. He can rush, drop in the coverage. He can do whatever you need him to do. Then you got all the young pups, right? You got the Jalen Walkers of the world, JPJ, James Pierce Jr. He's doing his thing. Those guys are just active. So you can throw so many types of guys, body types at guys throughout that entire game. And, offensive line, they don't sub. And they're like, okay, once they get used to a certain guy, then you got another guy coming in. He's fire breathing off the edge and trying to set you up to try to get to the quarterback. So
true.
With that formula and how this defense is set up, and I talked about archetypes, certain type of guys that this team likes. Like the 49ers like,
mm-hmm.
Falcons like a certain type as well. Everybody's going, get off the ball, GTFO, baby. Nate Ollie, that's his goal for those guys to get off the ball and get there. So when you have those type of things going for you and you're able to do it against a reigning MVP, absolutely this will come out party for sure.
Yeah. And for you, Free, do you feel like that game was a statement game, a coming out party of sorts for this Falcons defense?
Yes, I absolutely. I think Jarvis nailed it in the sense of, to me, that was the big question. The defense played well for the first 4 games of the season. We even talked about it in that 30-0 loss to Carolina. That wasn't really on the defense. A lot of that was special teams in the offense putting the defense in bad spots that led to that 30 points being allowed. But to me, the question was, okay, you've done it against Baker Mayfield to a certain extent. You didn't win that game, but you were able to mostly contain that Bucs offense. You did it against JJ McCarthy. You did it. You didn't do it against Bryce Young, but you did something against Bryce Young. And then you did it against Marcus Mariota. Can you do it against an elite quarterback? And as Jarvis said, they were able to do it against an elite quarterback, as he said many times already. They were able to have Josh Allen have one of the worst games that we have seen him play in quite some time. And so that to me is a testament to this defense performing at a high level. And as Jarvis said, Like, it's not because they have that alpha pass rusher. It's because they can dial up blitzes, and basically anybody can get it, whether it's D. Alford, Divine Diablo, Kate Nellis, James Pierce, Jayla Walker, Rororo, David Onyemata. You even saw Sam Roberts out there making plays, Zach Harrison, etc. So it's basically a kind of a pick your poison defensive front, where it's a lot of scheme stuff that we were talking about on the post game with Jeff Ulbricht being able to attack the team and just basically like, I just got a bunch of, for lack of a better term, bullets, and I'm just going to throw these bullets at the quarterback and, duck, basically is kind of how it's going to go. And so I think that's what you want to see from this defensive front. And then you couple that with, AJ Terrell coming back and the secondary playing really well. I think this defense is legitimately for real, and that they can do it against this Bills offense. They should be able to do it against pretty much anybody.
Yeah. And I kind of like the whole loading the holster and just firing away, because that's what it felt like. It felt like we were looking at a team that just kept coming, that Jeff Ulbricht understood the assignment, which is you cannot let up. And if you take away the drive coming out of halftime, that energy was what you saw the entire game. And that's when you could start calling a game sort of a statement game, or even if you want to say, like Maria, with a little bit of caution on statement, but still calling it an important game. One of the factors is consistency, and not just consistency across games, but really consistency within games, such that we didn't see what you and I kind of coined last year as the Oreo effect, like really good play defensively at the beginning, meh in the middle, but you come through in the end. I felt like the Monday night game was actually probably more of a consistent one across the board for what this team was able to do. And I think, Jarvis, even when you look at something else that I asked you guys about last week, the fact that, hey, Jeff Ulbricht saw Josh Allen twice a year for 4 years, while the defensive coordinator for the New York Jets and, of course, interim head coach. Seems like to me he kind of had a little bit of a one-up, kind of knowing Josh Allen's movements and kind of understanding how to scheme for him. Well, familiarity sometimes breeds contempt. Other times it breeds success, which is what it bred Monday. Jeff Ulbricht talked about how Kyle Shanahan has evolved as a play caller. Remember them back in their coaching days under Dan Quinn in 2016. We said it was an advantage against Josh Allen. Might this familiarity with Shanahan once again be an advantage for Jeff Ulbricht's unit come Sunday night?
I think I don't know if it's going to be necessarily an advantage. I think that it's going to help you prepare, because I think that I think one of the things that really stood out to me with Jeff Ulbricht is when he talked about leaving Atlanta and going on to, coach under Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator with the New York Jets. He talked about how he was able to evolve as a coach. He became a better coach when he left, because, Raheem Morris interviewed for the head coaching spot. And of course, we know that Jeff Ulbricht would have stayed on staff and been a defensive coordinator then, but that didn't happen. So when he talked about his story about leaving, coming back, it just speaks to getting more experience in this league, getting paired with guys that you didn't necessarily work with before, and understanding like, okay, I know I like to do X, but man, I really like what Z does when Robert Saleh does that. Or I like what, I like his style when he does these things. I don't necessarily want to bring that whole cover 3 thing in, but let me bring the other little part of that scheme that I like, that I can combine with, and I can kind of make my own. And I think that's the product of what we're seeing right now. Now, when I talk about I'm moving to Kyle Shanahan, he's evolved as well too.
True.
Kyle is, he's throwing some different little things out there in his offense, some wrinkles, because based off of personnel, that's how you know a good coach. Of course, you want to have your foundation of who you want to be as a play caller. But when you get certain players that are special, like, you have to adjust. And I think that when you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he's had to adjust to that. Like, maybe give him some more power blocking schemes instead of that wide zone, because that might be what Christian McCaffrey likes the most. Or he can do the wide zone, but he can come down and run that power at you as well. So I think that's going to be the big key right there. Understanding how Kyle is going to use Christian McCaffrey to be able to figure out a way to get an advantage. And I think that, Jeff Ulbricht, true enough, being on the staff with a guy and understanding and knowing who he is in those moments when they're not on the field, I think that those are some of the things that can kind of maybe you can get a feel for it. It can help you prepare, but I don't think it's going to give him advantage because, like, when you're talking about a guy you can say what you want about Kyle Shanahan. The guy's a hell of a play caller. And that has not changed. So I think that Jeff Ulbricht will be ready, but I don't think he's going to get an advantage because of, working with him before,
Yeah. What about you, Aaron? Advantage for Jeff Ulbricht or any opportunity there for him to maybe know some of the tendencies of Kyle Shanahan so that can help him to kind of prepare accordingly for Shanahan's offense?
I mean, it could. I think Jarvis nailed it. I think that advantage, it's kind of a two-way sword where it's like Jeff Ulbricht's and Raheem Morris's familiarity with Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan is an advantage for the Falcons, but that also cuts both ways because Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh are very familiar with Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbricht, and Kyle Shanahan's played that Sean McVay offense, and so he should be able to figure out Zach Robinson's offense. So it kind of cuts both ways, and so I think Jarvis nailed it where it's just like it can be an advantage, but it's really about preparation, and then you just got to go out there and execute, and you got to go out there and show. Can you go out there and slow down Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, those guys all this week? And that's really what it boils down to. And I think when you talk about this Bills game, that familiarity helped. But the question was you don't have Sauce Gardner, you don't have Quinnen Williams, you don't have those guys. And so that was the question with this Falcons team. Can you get that level of performance from the guys that you have in Atlanta that you were getting in New York when you were able to, keep Josh Allen in check for a handful of those games? And it wasn't always that they were keeping Josh Allen in check in those games. And so you got that performance from your players this past Monday night. And then you go back to the last time Jeff Ulbricht faced Kyle Shanahan, it was week 1 of last year. 49ers ran it down the Jets' throw. Joe and Mason, I think, had 150 yards in that game. They didn't have, Christian McCaffrey didn't play. So it's a different beast with Christian McCaffrey. So again, it just kind of boils down to yes, that familiarity helps. But at the end of the day, you got to tackle Christian McCaffrey. You got to be able to cover George Kittle. You got to be able to get off a block of Trent Williams. So I think it helps, but it's not going to necessarily win you the football game.
Yeah, and I think you guys make great points because even if there are little tendencies, because most coaches have tendencies, even in their evolution, most of them still have tendencies of how they're going to call a game. But as you guys also mentioned, it could go both ways. So ultimately, as much scheming as Raheem Morris may do with his knowledge of Kyle Shanahan, as much scheming as Kyle Shanahan may do, as much scheming as Jeff Ulbricht may do, etc. Ultimately speaking, it's whose players get on the field and actually execute the game plan. That's how the outcome is going to be dictated. But speaking of getting on the field or not, the Iron Man coming back or no, we'll tell you in the look ahead. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery, and you can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. So like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes relevant. So like the players, Mazda sweats every detail because, again, they make every move count, just like the players make every move count, and impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So, Aaron, we're looking at Jake Matthews. And it's a tough one because Jake, of course, went down, didn't return in the second half of Monday night's game against the Bills. Raheem Morris said, quote, "We know who he is. We know that he doesn't miss something. We'll just have to see, but I feel really positive about him and what happened based on not having any idea last night, of course, meaning Monday night." But to you, as far as the tea leaves are going, and of course, we're watching our Twitter feed just in case anything changes with some of our colleagues who are at Flowery Branch, ultimately speaking, do you feel like that's leaning in the direction of Jake Matthews playing a guy that has missed what? Is it one game? In all of his career, I mean, there's Iron Man and then there's Iron Man. He's on some Cal Ripken. He's been on some Cal Ripken his entire career. So, and one thing about Jake Matthews, if I can just say this free before you answer it, Jake Matthews is that guy on the left we never talk about. We never talk about the left side of this line. And if we do, we're usually talking about Matthew Bergeron. But that was in the beginning, if you will. But that's how steady Jake Matthews has been. On the days when we talk about him, it's been a shock. It's been like, oh my God, Jake Matthews caused a penalty. That's how consistent he's been. So it did kind of freak a lot of people out, like, oh dear, Jake Matthews goes down. Oh my. But do you feel, or do you get a sense that maybe he'll be good to go for Sunday?
I feel better. I definitely feel better. You never like on during a football game where a guy goes out and then immediately, like within 5 minutes, they declare he's out for the game, because that's usually not a very positive sign. Now, part of that was
the locker room before the half was even over.
Yeah, part of that was because it was right before halftime, and they could check him out quicker than you typically do, where you often get oh, he's questionable to return to the game, and then 20 minutes later they're like, okay, he's been downgraded to out or something like that because of whatever that situation. So the timing was part of that, but it's never a good sign. You always a little worried. It's the same thing we talked about during training camp when they bring out the cart. You're like, is this a precautionary move, or is this a real, like, they really needed to bring out the cart type of situation? And so you were very nervous about that Monday night, and then you hear Raheem basically, give you some assurances on Tuesday, basically saying we feel good about where Jake is. And so because of all the things you said, T, you feel better about his ability to play this weekend because we know Jake will play hurt, right? We have seen that many, many times. It's not that Jake never gets hurt. It's just he will play hurt and he will tough through that. And as you mentioned, we kind of take Jake for granted because he's just been a fixture on that left side for 11 years. And he's missed one game back in his rookie season. I think it was like week 16, week 17 during his rookie season. And he played hurt during his rookie season. I remember 2020 he played hurt. In 2023 he's had some injuries, some nicks and scrapes here and there. So it's one of those things where like it's a set it and forget it sort of situation at that left tackle position, and you're like, wait a second, this foundational piece that we haven't worried about for a long time, now there's some concern about it, and it kind of potentially, and again, hopefully we're feeling very optimistic that we're not in that situation right now, given the update that we got this week, but it has a huge, massive domino effect for the rest of the offensive line when we're already basically like, okay, well, we'll got Elijah Wilkinson on the right side, we're treading water, and then Mike Jarrell comes in, and it's like, ooh, Mike Jarrell. And again, I know some people were very critical of Mike Jarrell. He did not play well in Jake's stead, but like at the same time, it's like, you literally threw him to the wolves and Joey Bosa in his first game playing left tackle in the NFL. Like, yeah, he's going to struggle in that situation. And, thankfully, even if he is forced to play this Sunday, he won't have to deal with Nick Bosa. But, Bryce Huff, Mykel Williams certainly can cause some damage. And you feel so much better if Jake can sort of tough through this game, even if that means he has to play at like 87% or whatever it is. And we know that Jake is capable of doing that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's one of those where Jake Matthews at 75% just might be better than the alternative for the Falcons. But for you, Jarvis, were you encouraged? Do you feel like Jake Matthews is going to take the field come Sunday?
I think he's going to do everything in his power to be out on that field. You talk about being in the league for 12 years, 183 straight starts. That is absolutely ridiculous. It is so ridiculous to be able to say those things and play at a pretty high level, right? Like, don't cringe, Falcons fans. Jake Matthews is a doggone good tackle. But when you think about it from a standpoint of this game and the guys that he could potentially be going up against, he's not going up against the fire breather. Now, if he was going up against Nick Bosa, not to say he need to kind of idle down saying, no, I'm gonna be facing Nick Bosa, I need to sit out. No, definitely not saying that. But when you talk about going up against guys like a Bryce Huff and a young guy, Michael Williams, those are some of the things that you say, okay, all right, if we're on the edge about it, like maybe we can kind of sit you down and go with Michael Jarrell. But Chris Lindstrom said he takes pride in that streak. He takes pride in that streak. So there's no doubt in my mind he's going to do everything in his power to get out there. But I do feel like there is a little leeway to where this can be one of those games where you want to kind of take the air out of the football, if Michael Jarrell goes out there, right? Because it's a big, wide back man there. So you don't want him going backwards. You want him going forward. So I think when you think about it from that aspect, this is something that you definitely keep an eye on. And I feel like Jake is going to play just based off of like what we're used to. The precedent he set. I know that he's going to do everything in his power to get out there.
Yeah. And for you, Free, speaking of, and you kind of alluded to it already, Michael Jarrell, he did what he had to do in order to help the Falcons complete the game. Maybe not the best option there, but if he has to play come Sunday night, because although Jake Matthews might try, he's not able to go. How do you feel about Jarrell having to step in for Jake?
I mean, I don't feel great about it. It's a big drop off. Like, again, that's not a shot at Michael Jarrell, but as Jarvis said, like, Jake is very good, right? Jake is like a 8 out of 10 left tackle. I think that's a fair statement to say with Jake. And you're just kind of hoping Mike Jarrell is like a 5 out of 10 left tackle filling in those shoes. And like, that would be like, hey, thumbs up, Mike Jarrell. Hey, 5 out of 10. We're happy with that at this stage, given where, his background, being a right tackle, being a 6th-round pick, coming from like a Division III school, all that sort of stuff, and being thrust into the fire. So I feel like we've been talking about this for, since Caleb McGarry went down with an injury, how do the Falcons mitigate these tackle issues and offensive line issues, and I think because the run game has been such a strength for this team, and some of the good I saw from Mike Jarrell on Monday night was the run blocking as opposed to the pass protection. But again, like, you got to grade on a curve because it's Joey Bosa and Greg Rousseau. It's like, yeah, of course he's going to struggle against those guys. But I think that puts the Falcons more pressure to lean on their run game as a way to hide the play action passing game, which we've been talking about. So I feel better about it than I probably would have a month ago when, we weren't necessarily 100% sold on whether or not this run game, coming off that Bucs game where it was like, the run game is struggling. Where's the play action? I think the Falcons are in a much better place given where they have been these last, several games in those two areas to kind of hopefully mitigate any issues that they would have if Mike Jarrell has to play extended minutes.
Yeah. Jarvis, if Jarrell has to go for Jake.
Oh, man. I hope that they have a plan to turn around and hand the ball off a lot to Bijan and Tyler Algier, because I like I said, I don't want Michael Jarrell to be in a situation where, God forbid, they get down. They get down and they have to pass the football.
Yeah.
And Elijah Wilkinson has been fine, right? Mm-hmm. But he had his moments in Monday night as well against guys like Gregory Rousseau, who's long, and he's one of those walk off the bus type guys. When you talk about pass rushers, like being down on the field before the game, looking at those guys, I'm like, hey man, y'all some big mofos. And I'm 6'5". I ain't no little dude. So to see those guys look like that, he struggled with a guy like that. Michael Williams is built in that same mold. So I hope that Jake is able to get out there. But like you said, if Michael Jarrell gets out there, I think that game plan going to have to change up just a little bit. I think getting both of those running backs involved in the run game and then really focusing in on that play action. And if you want to take deep shots and try to get down that field, I think that's going to be more so the game plan than what we're used to.
Yeah. And for you, Free, real quick, the Falcons win this game against the San Francisco 49ers if what?
They get off to a fast start on the road.
Period.
Absolutely.
And for you, Jarvis, the Falcons win this game against the San Francisco 49ers and get their third win in a row, fourth win of the season if
they get 30 plus carries between Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier.
Fair enough, period. And I say they win this game if they don't have to rely on Parker Roma to do it for them.
Oh.
Thanks to our everydayers.
I guess we couldn't end the show without shade being thrown.
Your first listen of the day. I tried to keep a straight face, by the way, because I meant that with my heart, man. I was saying that from my
yes, we know. We can tell. I felt it.
But if you want more of that kind of shade, be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. And check out Maria Martin, host of Sports Extra on Sundays on 11 Alive. As she mentioned earlier, she'll have a great feature coming up on Tyler Algier, speaking of him. And of course, you can catch Jarvis as a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons and Sports Extra. We'll see you next time.